and welcome back to Genesis Designs and Modelcraft, and I have here for you today a quick look review on this. This is the Eduard 1/48 scale DH2. Now this is not a new kit. This kit was originally released quite some time ago, but has latterly become relatively difficult to find and indeed quite expensive. So I was quite pleased when I saw that Eduard were planning to re-release the kit, as I did not have any, and this is a type that I do have some fascination for, which will be explained further in a second. I do have a Wingnut Wings 32nd version of the aircraft, but I've only got one, and they are obviously really rather expensive and difficult to come by now as well. So yes, the re-release of this kit from Eduard is quite a welcome one for me, and you might justifiably wonder why I would have any real fascination for this aircraft, and I'll explain that somewhat. So as many of you already know, I am an aircraft technician in the Royal Air Force, and my first posting from training was to 2430 Engineering Squadron at RAF Lynham, working on the Hercules, and I stayed in that establishment until relatively recently, through all of its name changes, finally ending up as 47 Squadron. And when I moved to 24 Squadron again, but this time to the main 24 Squadron as an instructor, engineering instructor on the A400M, where I remain to this day for now. That relates to this aircraft how? Well, this aircraft, it's not a de Havilland. This aircraft was built by a company called AIRCO, and the reason for the DH nomenclature is that it was designed by Sir Geoffrey de Havilland in the time before he founded his own aircraft company, which was obviously called de Havilland. So he designed the aircraft for AIRCO, and it first flew in 1915. The first operational squadron to use this aircraft, and indeed also the first Royal Flying Corps squadron to be equipped only with fighter aircraft, was, in fact, 24 Squadron. I should clarify fighter aircraft as single-seaters. So 24 Squadron were the first British fighter squadron, and they took this aircraft to France in early 1916, led by Major Lano Hawker VC. And the squadron and the aircraft were heavily involved in the Battle of the Somme. So Lano Hawker was actually the second commanding officer of 24 Squadron, but the first one to take them into operations. A very, very, very inspirational leader, and also an engineer as well. He invented multiple things. If you look him up, there's lots of things that were in use until well after the Second World War, in fact, that were actually invented by Hawker. And I'm going to read verbatim from Wikipedia and describe the contact in which Hawker was actually killed in the end. On the 23rd of November 1916, while flying an AIRCO DH2, serial number 5964, Hawker left Bertongal Aerodrome at 1300 hours as part of a flight, which was led by Captain J.O. Andrews and included Lieutenant R.H.M.S. Saundby. Andrews led the flight in an attack on two German aircraft over Aschitz. Spotting a larger flight of German aircraft above, Andrews was about to break off the attack, but spotted Hawker diving into the attack. Andrews and Saundby followed him to back him up in his fight. Andrews drove off one of the Germans attacking Hawker, and then took bullets in his engine and glided out of the fight under Saundby's covering fire. Losing contact with the other DH2s, Hawker began a lengthy dogfight with an Albatros D2, flown by Lieutenant Manfred von Richthofen of Jasta II. You may have heard of that fellow. The Albatros was faster than the DH2, more powerful and more heavily armed. Richthofen fired 900 rounds during the running battle. Running low on fuel, Hawker eventually broke away from the combat and attempted to return to Allied lines. The Red Baron's guns jammed 50 yards from the lines, but a bullet from his last burst struck Hawker in the back of his head, killing him instantly. His plane spun in from 1,000 feet and crashed 200 metres east of Lusenhof Farm, just south of Bapaume on the Flare Road. He became the German Ace's 11th victim. To this day, every November, 24 squadrons send a batch of personnel over to a small village called Ligny-Tilloy, and I apologise for my dreadful French, but hey ho. That village is around about a mile from where he crashed and was buried, and there is a memorial to Hawker there in their little village square, and every year they have a proper remembrance parade in that square under the flag, and every year 24 squadron personnel are present at that parade. I myself went last year. I wasn't able to go this year because of my little hospital visit, but hopefully I'll get to go again in the future. So that is why I'm interested in this aircraft, and as an aside, there are no extant original versions of this aircraft anywhere in the world, but there are multiple replicas, and in fact I visited one under construction in a hangar on the Shuttleworth Aerodrome sort of a year or so ago, which has been built from scratch and looks absolutely incredible. So that's why I'm interested in this aircraft. Oh, and as a second aside, in the 24 Squadron headquarters building at RAF Bryce Norton, there is on the wall a broken four-bladed propeller, which is alleged to be from the wreck of Hawker's aircraft. It can't be proven clearly, but that's what the plaque on it says. So here we go. Anyway, back to the kit. Sorry about that, but I thought it might be worth mentioning those things. This was quite a pivotal aircraft for the Royal Flying Corps. Why the weird design? Because at the time of this aircraft the British didn't have the interrupter gear to fire the guns through the propeller arc, so why not just put the engine behind the guns? Problem solved. You get this weird pusher arrangement. That's why you got this layout. But let's look at the kit. Enough of that real aircraft nonsense, woman. What do we have inside? Well, typical Eduard right off the bat. So this kit was originally released in 2008, so it's a little bit long in the tooth now. As I say, has been released multiple times before, but it's currently, well, until this re-release, a little bit difficult to get a hold of. But here we go. We actually get 3 of these grey sprues in the kit. So this one is upside down, sprue A, nice. And obviously, as you can see, you've got both of the wings and this fuselage sort of nacelle piece. The detail on here is typical older school Eduard. It is brilliant. Beautiful, beautiful fabric effects. I do so wish that Eduard would go back to doing their fabric surfaces a bit more like this, instead of the rhinoceros rib tapes that we currently have to endure, which are incredibly difficult to remove. So here we are, yeah, as I say, a couple of wings, the nacelle pods here where you've got the sort of quite prominent lacing on these fuselage sides and some framing on the insides. Despite the age now of this, all of this is beautifully crisply moulded. I don't see any flash or really major sort of misalignments or mould seams anywhere. It's all absolutely lovely. So that's sprue A. I wonder if this is B. Yes, it is. Here we go, sprue B then. We've got the rest of the sort of main airframe components really. A tailplane and a fin and rudder assembly. 2 different propellers, 4-blade and a 2. Representation of your engine and various ammunition holders and whatnots. Struts and undercarriage parts, and again, nothing wrong with this moulding whatsoever. It's clean as a whistle. Close up there of you, a few of the parts. Some nice detail on this rear fuselage part here. And the final sprue of plastic parts, presumably sprue C, yes it is, features a lot of small things and the tail booms. I've not built this kit before, but I suspect if there's going to be an issue anywhere, it's going to be with these. They are discernibly quite fragile. Adventurous modellers might want to consider rebuilding these parts, utilising these struts, but maybe some brass rod or tube for these rather than the plastic parts. Worth thinking about. I suppose you trade the strength of the tube for the strength of the adhesive attachment, but it may be worth looking at. Lots of other small parts which I can't possibly identify, frankly. There's a machine gun here and some ammunition drums, but there you have it. That's the third sprue. Alright, on top of that then, because this is a Profi pack, we have some other things. Instructions. So, photo etch. Quite a comprehensive sheet, giving the relative simplicity of the aircraft actually, for photo etch. And some of it is coloured. So on this I can identify seat harness straps and instrument panels, ammunition drum holders, which could look very nice, and a reasonable photo etch representation of a wicker seat. These World War I aces flew in the lap of luxury in basket woven seats, and that's not a terrible way of representing it. I wouldn't be surprised if there are resin or 3D printed sort of seats that might be suitable for this kicking around somewhere. But that is quite an extensive fret, really, I think. Get in there. Okay. Then we have a sheet of masks, Eduard's own pre-cut mask. What have these got on? Let's see. Oh, nice. Okay, so we've got wheel masks, and then here is a mask for the underside of the fuselage with the zigzags where the fabric, you see that? The fabric overlapped underneath and was in two different colours, and a bunch of other shapes. Not sure what they're for, but I'm sure the instructions will clarify that. Finally, a decal sheet. Again, standard Eduard fare, no doubt the removable film should you wish to, but as I've said many times before, you don't necessarily have to, because the carrier film is beautifully tapered on these sheets and you really can lose the decals quite easily without having to go through the process of peeling off the film. The colours are brighter, or the blue anyway is brighter than later aircraft, which is correct, and the sort of Eduard dottiness doesn't appear to be present, and they're fairly well, they don't look washed out, they look nice. I know a lot of people have issues with Eduard decals. I think generally they're actually very, very good, and these do look to be up to spec. You see how that carrier film is really, it really does taper down beautifully. Right then, let's look at the destructions, shall we? So again, standard Eduard fare, nice little A4 booklet, good bit of history here talking about the configuration, the design, construction of the aircraft, and finally a little panel on aces that flew the aircraft. First page, again, absolutely standard. Location diagrams, masks and etch, colour callouts in Guns Aqueous and Guns Mr. Colour. Construction wise then, going straight in with the internal stuff and that little fuselage nacelle. Lots of very small parts. get the nacelle finished, there's your engine. Again, pretty simple. These old rotaries were very, very simple. And straight away going into fitting the wings. So the lower wing isn't going to be an issue. It fits onto this nacelle, no problem. And in fact, the bottom of the nacelle is moulded into the wing panel. But 12 vertical struts to align. No jigging, it's not a self-jigging assembly like a lot of more modern kits are. The attachment points are small, there's a lot of them. It might be worth considering purchasing or building some sort of jig to aid alignment there, especially if for the less experienced biplane modeller. Undercarriage then. Pretty simple assembly. And that's what the other masks are for. They're propeller tip masks. That's a nice thought, isn't it? Like that. And these are to replicate brass tipped propellers. Then we fit the booms and the tailplanes. Bit of fuel tank plumbing down here. So the aircraft had one machine gun, a Lewis, and initially it was on a movable mount as replicated here, but latterly most were modified to be fixed on the aircraft as the pilots got the hang of the idea of aiming the aircraft rather than the gun. Another thing that Mr. Hawker had a hand in. And some, as was common actually with aviators back in the day, they experimented of their own accord, and there were aircraft out there with twin machine gun armaments and such as well. And that does finish off the construction, so it's sort of simple in quite a complicated manner. Complicated yet simple. And finally, to finish off, we've got some rigging diagrams. You can see here the rigging wires are in blue, and there are two further diagrams to show all the different angles. Fairly extensive rigging on this one, but it's nice that they do put the diagrams in and that they put them from different angles to show different things. For example, obviously this is showing underneath, but also showing the boom rigging, and here you've got control runs being shown as well. So it builds it up in a nice logical manner. So markings then, got a few different ones. This one is for Captain Arthur G. Knight of 24th Squadron, and is the sort of clear dope linen with a green pod, the red wheels and the stripy struts. So Arthur Gerald Knight gained his first aerial victory with this aircraft on June 22nd, 1916. His victim was identified as a two-seat German LVG destroyed in the vicinity of Courcelette in France. Knight shot down 8 enemy aircraft at the time of his death, all of which achieved with the DH2. On October 28, 1916, he participated in combat where a fatal collision between Jasta II commanding officer Oswald Boyka and his colleague Erwin Boehmer occurred, and on December 20th, 1916, Knight died, becoming the 13th victim of the German legend Manfred von Richthofen on a one-man crusade to destroy all of 24 Squadron, clearly. Here we have an aircraft of Captain William G. S. Curfey, Flight C-32 Squadron. This one has some extra sort of points of interest. You've got the black and white wheel centres, which apparently identify the aircraft as being C Flight 32 Squadron, and we've got a C1 reproduced on the upper wing and on the undersurface as well. Third option, Captain John O. Andrews, 24 Squadron. This aircraft was flown by 12 Kill Ace Captain John Oliver Andrews. He started his flying career as an observer gunner in an Avro 504 with No. 5 Squadron. He received his pilot rating in October 1915 and was assigned to 24 Squadron. He flew combat against German aces and on April 27th, 1916 damaged the Eindecker flown by Max Immelmann. You may have heard of that fellow too. On November 22nd, 1916 he gained his 7th and last kill with 24 Squadron. It looks like Stefan Kermeyer, commanding officer of Jasta 2 and an 11-kill ace, was his victim. The following day, Andrews took part in combat that claimed the life of 7-kill ace and 24 Squadron commanding officer Lano Hawker at the hands of the Red Baron. Andrews was transferred to number 66 Squadron thereafter and flew the Sopwith Pup. In all, he gained 9 confirmed kills and 2 listed as out of control. The second ace that flew this aircraft was Sidney Edward Cohen. Flying this aeroplane, he shot down a German 2-seat LVG, thus gaining his 5th of 7 kills, and he died in November 1916. And the final option given in the kit here is another 24 Squadron mount, this being that of Robert Henry Magnus Spencer Saundby. What a magnificent name. We just don't name people like we used to, do we? Saundby gained a total of 5 kills over the course of the First World War, 3 of which from the cockpit of a DH2. His first victory was acquired with this aircraft. On July 31st, 1916, he claimed a German Fokker Eindecker, which was credited as out of control. During the course of the same combat, which reportedly took place east of Oiselle, he was wounded. Evidently this was not serious, as by August he shared another kill with John O. Andrews. Later he was transferred to 41 Squadron, and his last victim was the Zeppelin L-48 airship. During the Second World War, as a staff member of Bomber Command Royal Air Force, he took part in the planning phases of carpet bombing plans of German cities. He received a list of British and foreign awards, was knighted, and left the service in 1946 as an Air Vice Marshal. There you go. So it's a good spread of schemes there. This is clear dope linen throughout, but it has the red 24 Squadron wheels, and we've got a nice big 4 on that one. And then you've got the one with the sort of teeth effect underneath, one with some big letters on it, and black wheels, and a sort of standard one here. They've all got little points of interest on them though, I think. So there we go, that is a quick look through the just re-released Eduard DH2. I think you'll agree a fairly significant aircraft in the development of British aerial combat, and indeed the amount of many pilots who went on to greater things or just did great things at the time. A really interesting design as well. So I got this kit from modelsforsale.com, currently got quite good stocks of it, and it is priced from them at £17.63. It is of course, having just been re-released, widely available across all model shops and anywhere that stocks Eduard, and of course directly from Eduard if you prefer. RRP is around the £20 mark, so should be widely available for a little bit less than that everywhere you look, and that's got to be better than having to pay £50 on eBay for a second-hand one. So thank you very much, Eduard, for this re-release. Thanks as always for watching. I hope this has been helpful to some of you. Don't forget, you can support the channel if you wish using the Buy Me a Coffee app, that is in the description below. And thanks as always for all of your support. And with all of that said, I think it only remains for me to say, until next time, look after yourselves, look after each other, and Genesis out.